That's time to tune into the show. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Let's talk perspective. Okay, so welcome to the very first episode of Let's Talk Perspective podcast. I'm your host, Danita Baby, and I'm super excited to be starting this podcast. So just a little bit about the podcast. We will focus on many different topics with different views. Therefore, views broadcasted on the podcast might be the views you don't agree with, but perspectives or just that, the views of other people. So I'm super excited about my very first guest that we're going to be interviewing today, Mr. Jeremy Guffey. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
But we're friends now, so you have to call me Germ.
Yes, that's what I was just about to say. Can I call you Germ? So,
absolutely.
Before you make your introduction, I'm just going to do a brief information on what we have about you. You know, you are a business owner, a musician, a mentor, a father, a husband, a podcaster. Like, it seems like the list just goes on and on, right? It was very impressive. And so one thing I definitely wanted to say when I did my research on you, because I did, I really love your voice over, the microphone. I think you have a perfect voice for podcasting, but I told you that though.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. It's extremely humbling. It's one of the things over the years doing podcasting. Well, not doing podcasting because I've only been doing it for, I believe, 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But being a vocalist in a band, the style of vocals that I've done over the many years are not really radio quality, and my bands have not been radio quality. So the idea of doing a podcast and having people listen to what I say, rather than me in my workplace or being a boss telling them what to do, but more telling the stories, was, to be honest, it's probably, as you will know this, it's one of the most frustrating things.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you expose yourself, and you're like, okay, so this is my voice, so this is what you're gonna hear, and you're gonna picture in your mind my face, and what you come up with is what you're gonna identify with. Even when you meet me, you're gonna be like, you don't look like the person I figured in my mind, so therefore I'm gonna find faults in you. It's all those insecurities. But when you can tell, when you can tell the good story, and when you can tell other people's stories, then you're just like one of the community. So
right. And
my coming full circle is what I'm trying to say is the things I've done in my band. I play rock and roll. I play punk rock.
Right.
I play a theatrical rock. I really work on things to make people think. So, and my art and everything was dark. So it's weird for me to get an audience that doesn't know me from my music, but if you find that fine line, and for my fine line is I want people to understand what I do on stage is theatrics, and there's a lot of passions that go into all my art. So in podcasting, when you're trying to get listeners, you want them to understand, I want to listen to this guy because he's not just doing this for the dollar. He's telling a story.
Right.
Right. And that's why I'm stoked to be on with you. Because you want to,
That's what I want to dive into. That's exactly what I want to dive into. Like the Germ, the father, the husband, versus Germ, the performer on stage, definitely. So before we get started with that, did you want to let the audience know a little bit more about you? And
oh well, okay, yeah, and thank you. I know I'm so long-winded, and you already know this through our correspondence.
Me too.
So I'm, a father, a stepfather, and a husband, and I've been. I guess we'll do a rough. I started booking a club called Soma down here in San Diego, and bands that came out of that club are bands like Blink 182, um, Sprung Monkey, Buck
Mhm.
09, Unwritten Law, um, the Agent 51, the Classified, Ghoul Spoon. The list goes on and on. I mean, the talent that came out of this town is absolutely ridiculous. And
Mm.
I promoted shows from there. I booked the shows. I ran the club under the owner for from about 89, late 89 to 97. So bands like Green Day came out of there, No Doubt came out of there. Um, Realistically, the list, if I try to name off every band that needs like proper respect that came out of this club, and Stone Temple Pilots, Corn, um, yeah, we would be here all night just naming off bands. So we were a central hub of a lot of things that happened in San Diego, and I was fortunate to be a huge part of it. I booked a lot of my focus was the local bands.
Right.
And today my focus still is on local talent, but I also played in a bunch of bands. I'm a bass player, vocalist.
Mm.
I'm known for, oh god, I'm gonna name a few, not all of them, but Poor, Cockroach, Meat was the name of one of my bands.
Meat. Meat.
Urine, yeah, no, Urine was the name of one of my bands. Um, Graveyard Dogs, Off with Your Head. I play a heavily distorted bass, very fast like a guitar. I'm the for I'm trying to not be abusive about this. I play very it's just punk rock, heavy punk rock stuff.
Mhm.
I'm trying to trying to keep the ego down on this. It's just weird to explain myself. So I also do the Union of Metro podcast.
Okay. Yes. Yes. I check it out.
That's where I talk with people like local acts, the Buck '09. I talk to Dino Cazares from Assassino and Fear Factory on the podcast. I talk to some of our sound guys like Sammy from down here. He does a lot of sound. I just try to get the voice. There's so many people again. So the Union of Metro podcast, and I just talk with the people from the scene and try to get their stories. And it's a long podcast, so I'm long winded, right?
Right.
Two and a
It's
half
okay.
2.5 hours is like when we kind of stretch the limits. But most of my podcasts are about 2 hours. But I just like to hear the stories of people. So that's why
Right.
I'm long winded. You get a glass of wine, you sit with me. 2 bottles later, we're going outside to have a cigarette and go, yeah, and start talking about more shit. Just because I like getting people, it's an artist, I like to get in people's heads. So I also run Red Rum Skates, where I hand
Mhm.
paint skateboards. And when I get enough time in between the three different bands that I do and art, I will because I also do full time landscape maintenance company. That keeps me sane. But
Yeah, I
when I get
see.
time, I press skateboards. So I actually make I press skateboards, shape them, paint them, give them out to the world. I did a charity for kids called Skateboards for Kids that I still kind of do. Whenever I get a bug, I will put together a complete skateboard. I'll go out in the community to a skate park.
Yes. So we're definitely
And
going
I
to
give it to a kid.
right.
It's gonna,
Definitely want to if you're currently still doing that, definitely want to put that out there too before we
yeah,
end so people know, where to look for
yeah.
you for when you're doing those charity works. That's great. I love people who work with kids and I love working with kids myself. And trying to get more into this community, even though it's a new community for me, but
Hmm.
definitely would like to get out there and you know, give back for sure.
Hmm.
However,
Absolutely. I
so
do. I also mentor some kids that are doing local promotions of shows, and they've actually got an LLC now. They're called Magnolia. Well, on Instagram, it's Magnol Company,
mm,
Magnol CO. But they're putting on shows, and so I'm still working with the local music scene, which
right.
is I just
That's great
I
work.
can.
That's what that is. That's great work. It's always good to give back, and I always appreciate it. Like I said, I'm trying to get out in this community, even though it's not my community, but it's definitely a passion for me as well. So
Hmm.
love the children too, but I definitely will help adults as well. I
Right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
don't.
No, you got to find that balance.
Right.
You know, you got to
I
find that balance between everything.
I definitely agree with that. So let's kind of get into some of it. So one of the things you already brought it up, you said something about the dark art, which is obviously the totally opposite of me. I'm more like butterflies, happy days, sunny days. So,
Right, right, right,
and
right.
you're like on the other spectrum of that. You're into like the dark art. Like, tell us a little bit more about what that means and like how you kind of got into it. Because I know there is a fun fact about you, Germ, is that you're born on Halloween. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
does that have anything to
Um,
do with this dark art that you have such a passion for?
as you know, it's funny. As a kid, my mom would tell me that I would ask her why everyone dressed up for my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall any of that stuff. I just know I was a creepy, kooky kid from the beginning. Um, so obviously, as growing up by using the moniker Adams, by going to my stage name as Germ Adams. The Adams family, the Munsters, I as weird as they were,
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of made sense. In To me, in my functionality in my art, it just made sense to be around people that look at these things as normal. From
Mm.
electric chair to bats to wolves to dinosaurs, because still to this day I love dinosaurs. Um, yeah, I think for me, and then relating to Scooby Doo, it really just came out of the art form. Oh God, this is weird. Like the art form, but the art family and the people and the community. There we go. Lost for words. The community out of that style of art just related to me, and I just found everything about it, like the monsters. I didn't see them as I saw more outside influences as monsters, and I saw like Frankenstein and Werewolf done in cartoon style as more relatable to me. Being I was super skinny as a kid. I rode a skateboard, and not any. It was not freaking cool. '70s to ride a skateboard. I was a redhead. Um, I liked Ozzy. I liked Venom. Um, I liked. I don't know. I liked just the goofy stuff.
Right.
I really like the goofy stuff more than anything, and I related to that more than I did, the beavers and or the cleavers, beaver cleaver and the Waltons and all that stuff. I just related to it more, so it made more sense to me. So that ended up transgressing into my art, but I also raised orchids for like 25 years. So I like orchids, and I like the intricacy of the art form of the plant, which is basically a weed, which that kind of falls into everything. All the cliches of Halloween just seem to fit with my personality, so I understood
Right.
that. It was kind of like an outline of how to live my life as in my adolescence, was thanks to the goofy Halloween antics and marketing of big business. It's really, which enhanced, probably is why I'm a punk rocker.
Right. Well, that was the follow up that I was going to go into, and the thing about it too, like I said, the podcast obviously about perspectives, and punk rock and dark art is kind of perceived differently. For
Yeah.
some, like talking to you, you're kind of enlightening me now to know. Now, granted, obviously, I have not been the person to like listen to punk rock, and not because what I really thought about punk rock and stuff like that, like these people are like outstanding musicians, right? They really know how to play that guitar. But the thing, I never could connect with it words wise because I never felt like I could hear the words, like, so there wasn't like the
Oh yeah.
connection, because
Right.
you can connect to a tune, but I'm like, what are they saying? Like, I don't, I just never knew what they were saying or what they talked about. And then you have the perspective that is dark and is demonic and, all of these different things. So it's definitely very enlightening to hear your side of it. Because some people's perspective is that it's like dark and demonic,
Yeah.
so
It's
definitely.
that that's a deep hole that we can dive down in to put it in the most simplistic of terms, but because there is so many conversations on every side, and I am in no way a spokesperson for all of it, but where I come from, if you think of, well, where I come from, my basics of punk rock is I just did not like what I was being seen on TV. I didn't relate to what I saw in the stores. I related to growing up where I did near the coast. Like, we originally were at in Ocean Beach, Point Loma area, and then we moved inland a little bit. I'm always, that surf thing is always there. I'm not a surfer. I'm a skateboarder.
Right.
Um, the cliches of all that in the California and the skateboarder, a lot of them are based off of truth. And to be completely honest, they're the way it was. It was rough. Um, to not dive completely into it because we don't have the time for one, and the battery's getting low on my phone. And again, sorry for that, but
Yes, okay.
um, it there's a lot of rough and tough elements, but nowadays there's so many. We're going to do a part two on this, and we'll do a deep dive. I would love to
Okay.
do this. I would
Okay.
love to do this for my podcast because I would like to do a deep dive on what punk rock is. Because punk rock now is, I have friends that, Blink 182 that I work with, Green Day that I work with, that are huge stars, and they float the banner of punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
Punk rock was an idea. Punk rock is, well, to break it down really quick, is punk rock is a style of music. Punk
Right.
rockers are the people that listened and wrote that music. Punks were the people that were labeled as the rebels against what was going on, just the youth. I mean, we always come up with a name, we always come up with a label, but so many
Right.
labels
That's
will
true.
stick, and they will basically, you know, I think I just heard that about you, but destroyed like any future possibilities if they still fall in that genre as they reach the later parts of their teenage years. Punk rock and the punkers and the people like me are, I was labeled that so long ago, and I'm one of those artistic people that has to express himself.
Mm-hmm.
So I found the punk rock community a safe haven to be able to express myself for the times. I wasn't a beatnik, I wasn't a hippie, I was a punk rocker, which were actually rockers, which when we bring the satanic element, then that's when everything explodes. And I grew up in the 80s when it was really bad. And
Right.
everyone, if you listen to a certain amount of band, you know how media will cliche a movement and make their own narrative, and then the
True.
media drives the narrative, and then unfortunately the artists that are using that media will follow the narrative that the media writes to fulfill the self-propelled prophecy of destroying the culture. So punk rock was just basically the culture. and it wasn't dark. I'm a redhead. I draw all the time. I didn't do well in school. I rode a skateboard. This is the 70s and the 80s. I liked music a lot. I wasn't going to be a doctor. I wasn't going to be a lawyer. I didn't trust politicians. I didn't trust what people said. I didn't trust cops. Things just fell into place, and not to make it a singular thing, but all of us kids growing up, we all went through that in our own neighborhoods in our own ways, from Beverly Hills to the deepest of wastelands.
Right.
But my way was I found punk rock when I was in the early days, when I first heard Blondie on AM radio, and I'm like, oh, this is different than the Eagles, and it made more sense to my sensibility, and so then it grew from there. So to bring everything to a full circle, is punk rock was it became an establishment, a hashtag, a noun, if you will, for people of a music genre. It's just like pop music. It's like country music. It's now just a place for people to find a home. And in that home, there's many, many facets where people find comfort. It's like anything in humanity, realistically.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
was played enough by the media to make it the scapegoat for some, and the bad place for others, while
Right.
others found solstice. So, yeah,
Right.
I think that's
Definitely.
a simple enough way to.
I think you did good, and I'm just appreciating the clarity. But see, this is what I thought I was going to get out of the interview anyway, and at least it's definitely what I wanted to, get a deeper understanding when it comes to that. Because a lot of times, a lot of us, or stereotype, or this narrative is
Hmm.
associated with this group of people, or so forth. So obviously, definitely wanted you to come and kind of clear the air, because when you think
Oh
about
yeah.
the darkness and demonic and all of that. And then as I was researching you, and I'm not saying I thought you was demonic at first or dark or anything, but saying like this person seems to be totally opposite of what the narrative is for this. Like, I don't believe this person is this and that, or whatever, even though you did say you were like into the dark art. But then what you just enlightened me on is the way that you connect to it. And it has nothing to do. It's just what your connections is and what makes sense to you. And a lot of times that's how we all find our groups, when
Hmm.
we connect to
Absolutely.
what we relate to, And so
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate you bringing that clarity. So one of the things that I was going to ask you, was because you kind of already answered, I guess, a little bit of how you kind of fit in the punk rock era, kind of, right?
Hmm.
Um, so you said you were raised in the 80s, and you know what? I forgot to write it down. Were you around, is it called Workwood, or what is that called? Um I can't even think of what the name of that is called. It was an era when it was obviously a bunch of punk rock, and I felt like it had the word work in it or wood in it, but it was a lot going on with that group.
There was a huge, and uh, fair warning, we're at 3%. We're gonna have a
Oh
second
wow,
conversation,
really?
because this does get deep, because we had a huge there's I don't even want to say it because I find it offensive, but there was a huge problem with the skinhead movement of the
Right.
racists, and that is what San Diego is known for. Yes, that's it. It needs. This is a deeper conversation for a different time. Um,
Yeah.
I would
But
love to do a
what was
part
the
two on
name of
this, and
it
we can get
though?
back to it.
What was
Well,
the name of it?
there's the I don't even.
I can't think of the name of it. I thought I had it written down in my notes, but I don't. Uh yeah,
It
it was
it was
something.
really bad. It ruined a lot
It
of
was
shows. No,
bad.
it
It was bad.
It changed this is why. Oh, we're gonna have to go into a deeper conversation on this because I'm gonna lose battery.
Yes.
But let's do a deep dive. Let's whenever you're ready, let's reschedule because the punk rock movement was infiltrated by a white pride movement that the Nazi scene that ruined a lot of the shows. It goes really deep, and yes,
Right.
there needs to be some clarity. It was a problem in Southern California for a long, long time. It's been documented, but yeah, it's a scene divider, and yes, we had a problem, but it was fought on many, many fronts by many, many courageous. Even some of the nerdiest of nerds got involved. It was really serious. We'll go into it at a later time.
Yeah, we can definitely go into it later time.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna figure out that name because I can't think of it to save my life.
Yeah, I don't know if I even want to say it on film. So,
Okay, yeah,
but yeah,
we can talk about it later. I told you I
okay.
was researching. I did a lot of research. One of the things I
No, I
researched
appreciate that.
is your name, the name of, because we'll try to wrap it up. But the name of your skateboard company is Red Rum, right? And so
Yeah, Red Rum Skates.
obviously
Yeah,
that's spelled murder backwards, but it also
yeah,
came off of a movie. A book
yes.
that Stephen King wrote, what was it called? The Signing
The
or
Shining.
yeah,
The
The Signing.
Shining.
Is that where you got the name from? Because they turned
Yes.
it into a film, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's yeah. Because
Okay.
it's it's nice and creepy.
Yes, I have not watched the movie personally, but when I was reading up on it, once I was doing my research on you, they did say it was kind of like a very interesting movie, is what I've seen. But hey, that's Stephen King. That's what he writes, So
Yeah.
it's definitely nothing out of the norm for him, right? So
Yeah. No, it's a good thriller. It's thought provoking, and hence there's a lot of the art that I do that's thought provoking, but it's also done in the nature of just it's just art, you know.
right.
So that's kind of there's a lot of double entendres in a lot of what I do and what I post. It's to make people think,
Right.
you know.
I heard you say that because I remember I asked you about a picture and you said that too. So let me ask you this as we try to wrap it up before your phone dies. Between dark art and punk rock, which one came first? Which passion came first?
Dark art,
The dark
definitely.
art first?
Yeah.
So when did you start the dark art? Like at what age? Middle school?
Oh yeah, probably around 9 or 10. I started drawing weird skulls with eyeballs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So then when did you start the punk rock? When did you get into that?
Probably not till later. So I'm thinking I was born in '68. So I'm thinking probably '79ish. I really started to hear proper punk rock. Yeah,
Okay.
78, 79. Yeah.
So what is that, like teenage years? What? Oh no, that's adulthood, isn't it? Young adult.
That would be for me like early teenage, like
Oh,
just just right on that cusp. 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there. Yeah.
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
That's time to tune into the show. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Let's talk respect. Let's talk respect. Let's talk respect. That's time to tune into the show. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Let's talk respect. Let's talk respect. Let's talk respect. Hey y'all. I think he just died. Definitely would be a part 2 for Mr. Germ. But with that being said, thanks for tuning in to the Let's Talk Perspective podcast. I'm your host, Anita Baby. Thank you again for tuning in, watching the podcast. Definitely look forward for your support in the future. And I definitely will be bringing you all types of topics. I'm talking about family, relationships, love, whatever you could think of. I'll be here talking about it. And I'll be giving, having guests that can give different perspectives on it. Just like tonight, as far as this whole punk rock is concerned, obviously, that was very enlightening for me. So definitely got to do a part 2 for that so we can dig in a little deeper. But again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to part 1 interview with Jerm. Please tune in to part 2, which will air June 23rd. New time being 7:30 p.m. Central Time, where we dive in deeper on punk rock. Until then, y'all be blessed.